live.
Hey,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So can you hear me okay? Is my mic
hmm
okay? All
yeah,
right. Yeah. Fantastic. So, good evening, Arian. How are you doing on this
I'm pretty
fine
good.
election day?
I'm good. I have not been out the house all day, so if there's anything crazy happening outside, I haven't seen it.
All right. Well, that's awesome that you were able to stay home. That sounds good. I I had gotten a paper ballot, but I've never been one to really want to vote that way. I don't always trust it.
Mhm.
So I ended up not sending it in, and I got up at 5:30 this morning, and I went to my poll site, and I was expecting to be first online at 6 a.m. But I got there, and the line was already a block and a half long.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
On it.
So, but fortunately, it didn't take that long. We actually moved through pretty quickly. So, it was not so bad. And I got to vote. And
Good stuff.
I am still wearing my old memorabilia, thinking about good days gone by.
When it was a little more simple and there was less argument about no one excites me.
Hmm.
Not
Yeah.
enthusiastic about either one, so I don't think I'm going to.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know nobody can ever say that again. There's too much danger for not, making a decision and doing something early on. So, or in every election. Okay, so for those of you who need a little respite from the news and watching all of this stuff, come here. We're done now. We're done now talking about the politics stuff. But I know that I need to take a breather from watching all of the news and just watching the whole thing. So for an hour, hour and a half, we're just gonna talk. Totally carnivore stuff. We're going to be funny and we're going to have a good time. So, welcome to my channel. I am the Black Carnivore, and you are here tonight, and we are going to talk about specifically. I don't know if you noticed the thumbnail I posted, but we're going to talk about sort of the ins and outs of fat loss on carnivore and why it can be sometimes a challenge. So a lot of times, many of us have heard, somebody say, "Oh, I like ate cheeseburgers, bacon cheeseburgers and hot dogs for 9 months and I lost, 100 pounds and I'm so happy now."
hmm
But then others of us, it hasn't quite worked out like that. So we want to talk about that and kind of help you figure out what's going on and see where you can tweak your game. So, yeah. So what do you think, Arian?
Um, I I think it's a very necessary topic. I think a lot of people will either you'll start and you won't see any success at all, and well, what you deem to be success, and you'll get discouraged, or you'll be in it for a while, and then get pretty close up to where you wanted to be, and then you just stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 That can be really frustrating.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
Can
you
you
all
all
hear
hear
me
me
okay?
okay?
Actually,
Actually,
we
we
have
have
a
a
bunch of
bunch of
people
people
here
here
in
in
the
the
chat,
chat,
and
and
um,
um,
so
so
good
good
evening.
evening.
How
How
are
are
you
you
all?
all?
If
If
you
you
are
are
here,
here,
please
please
hit the
hit the
like
like
button,
button,
subscribe,
subscribe,
and
and
hit the
hit the
little
little
bell
bell
icon so
icon
you
so
can
you can
get
get
notification
notification
every
every
time
time
I
I
post a
post a
video.
video.
And
And
let's
let's
say,
say,
hey,
hey,
Johnny
Johnny
G,
G,
Nasaya.
Nasaya.
Oh,
Oh,
there
there
was
was
no
no
line
line
for
for
you
you
to
to
vote
vote
today.
today.
Awesome.
Awesome.
That's
That's
fantastic.
fantastic.
Chase
Chase
says,
says,
F
F
the
the
scam
scam
election.
election.
I
I
hate
hate
hot
hot
wings
wings
without.
without.
Oh,
Oh,
I
I
ate
ate
hot
hot
wings
wings
without a
without a
flare
flare
up
up
today
today
with
with
blue
blue
cheese.
cheese.
All
All
right.
right.
I
I
think
think
that
that
those
those
two
two
things are
things are
not
not
related,
related,
but
but
perhaps
perhaps
they
they
are.
are.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Chase, you're playing a dangerous game.
Yeah.
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 Hot wings and yeah.
Hey,
Hey,
and
and
Denise,
Denise,
it's
it's
good to
good to
see
see
you.
you.
Angel
Angel
Life,
Life,
Miss
Miss
Katie,
Katie,
Glenda
Glenda
Reed,
Reed,
awesome to
awesome to
see
see
you.
you.
Okay,
Okay,
Angie
Angie
Life,
Life is
it
someone
says
says
my
my
sound is
sound is
echoing.
echoing.
Oh,
Oh,
everyone
everyone
hears
hears
that.
that.
Okay,
Okay,
That's that's
I
weird.
I
I don't
did
did
hear it at
something.
all.
something.
I
I
know,
know,
but
but
I
I
think
think
I
I
did
did
something.
something.
So
So You keep talking,
Arian.
Arian. Let me try to figure this out.
All right. In the meantime, shout out to Johnny G. Has amazingly been on for a half hour before this thing even started. 6:30, he was in here typing in chat. That's some dedication.
That's awesome. So let me know if you can still hear an echo on my sound. So, hey, Jocelyn, good to see you. Yep, the sound is still echoing.
Now you're quiet.
Well, why don't you, Arian, get started and
There you go.
with the first, yeah, why don't you get started with the first uh, item, which is, let's see, here we go.
I'm opening the list now. It was. Oh, okay. So, actually, this is the one I don't know as much about, so I hope you'll be able to jump in soon.
Okay, well,
But yeah, like you're super muffled.
how about now?
Oh, you're in. Yep.
Better? Okay. Oh my God.
And
Okay.
Tay D said, oh, okay. Tay D said she doesn't hear it anymore. Nasiah said, echo again. Angel Life said, no echo now. Let's see what
You
said
guys
better.
got to agree.
All in the same minute. So,
Yeah. All right.
hopefully,
Well, let's get started. You go ahead and talk about eating too lean.
all right. I will do my best. So, eating too lean. I think a lot of people have heard of rapid starvation, but if you have not, then this is what happens when you are eating too lean. Um, we are not built to eat just protein. That's just not how humans work. So we have to have fat with our food. In fact, we have to be eating mostly fat. So if you try to eat too lean, your body will end up using that protein for energy, but it will put you in a basic, I guess, like a starvation mode where you're not getting enough energy from what your body preferably wants to use for energy, which would be fat, and also not from carbs if you're not eating those either. Um, you're still going to live. You're going to have that protein. You're not going to be happy about it, and your body will not burn fat because it's going to lower its metabolism in accordance with the low amount of energy that you're giving it at that time. It thinks it's starving and it thinks that it needs to conserve energy.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty interesting. You also hear of like diabetics having to be a little bit careful about how much protein they're eating because it can drive up the sugar, their blood sugar. So I think in that case, what's kind of happening is if you're eating too lean or you're eating just too much protein overall, in some people who are, perhaps more insulin resistant, that excess protein can be burned like sugar, and that can end up driving up your blood sugar. And so, make you, it would increase your insulin and, make you a little more insulin resistant. And so that's why for some people, it can be, they have to be a little bit more careful. Now, this doesn't mean taking draconian methods to, bring your protein down to zero. It just means making sure that you're not trying to do a carnivore diet with like chicken breast and fish. And I do see there are people, there's like a lot of holdover from our beliefs about diet and exercise and calories and all of that that are left over. And so people do come in wanting to do this with like chicken, bacon, and fish, and it doesn't really work that well.
Yeah, that trying to, I felt this problem, like trying to be healthy and low fat at the same time, like trying to eat an ancestrally appropriate diet that is also low fat is very tough. And it I know for me, it did not work at all. It was the reason I stopped doing paleo. Like I probably could have transitioned straight from paleo into carnivore 10 plus years ago, except
Hmm.
that I was trying to be low fat, so I was staying away from red meat. So all the things that actually would fill me up the most, I wasn't doing, and I was hungry all the time. And there's a question in the chat, Kentora asked, so then would the body use its stored fat? Check the logic on this, but my thinking is no, because it's thinking it it shifts to a mode of conserving energy. So it's definitely going to try to conserve your stored fat as much as it can. Now it'll probably use that stored fat before it uses stored muscle,
Well,
but
if your insulin goes up, you just can't burn fat because insulin blocks that fat burning. So, it's like a switch. If it's on, then, other things can't
oh,
be
I see.
on. So when insulin goes up because you're eating, because your body is burning that protein like glucose, then that means you can't draw out fat. So if and this doesn't necessarily happen with every person, but for the person who is a little bit whose metabolism isn't that great or is already tends towards insulin resistance, that's where you really might see this. So somebody who's diabetic or who is turning around their diabetes, they might have a little bit more of an issue with that. And and for those of us who have a lot to lose or have lost a lot, keeping your insulin down is really important in order for this all to work. So you want your body to use your body fat when there isn't enough, edible fat coming in. But whether that can happen or not really kind of depends on your metabolic health. And if you're coming in not metabolically healthy, you may not be able to make that switch all that easily.
Mm. So you can
So,
eat enough protein then that your insulin will be, I guess, on average, too high to burn body fat, even when you're not eating. So, like
mhm.
in the periods between your high protein meals, you're not burning fat because your insulin's still high.
Hmm. And I'm
Okay.
not sure, but I don't think we know what is too high a protein because,
Mm,
there's a huge range of what is recommended. And there's a minimum, under which you probably won't die, or over which you probably won't die. And that's what the World Health Organization tells us, So for a woman, I think the bare minimum is like 45 grams. And for a guy, maybe it's 60 grams. But you also have people who are eating all the way up to 300 grams, 400 grams in a day, and there's no adverse response.
mm,
Maybe when you get up to those high levels, you no longer get a benefit from continuing to eat the protein. So perhaps you could say you're wasting money and wasting protein. But that is a huge spread. So you could be anywhere in there. But if you're not eating enough fat, you might be sending the wrong signals to your body so that your body doesn't, you think your body's going to say, okay, there's no fat coming in, let me get it all from the body. But it might say, oh my God, something horrible is going on. Let me, tamp down our metabolism so that we are not burning so many calories, and so the end result is that your metabolism slows to make sure that you have enough fuel to do your basics, and that's the opposite of what you want when you're losing weight. You want your metabolism to stay high.
mm. Okay, that makes sense. I think
Yeah.
it does. I feel
Yeah,
like my
so
understanding.
Katora is saying that she had read 1 gram per kilogram of weight is ideal. I assume she means for protein. So yeah, I mean, we've been told, certain numbers, but I don't know. I mean, I think as long as you're over 45 grams as a woman, um, and somewhere under 300, you're probably doing good. But the thing that's going to give you the best indication of how much you should have is your hunger levels. So if you're not eating enough fat with that protein, you're going to find that your mood is not as good. Your ability to go longer periods without eating isn't going to be as good. As you tend back towards that sugar burner, you're going to want to eat more often. So if you can't go 8 hours without, feeling like you're going to pass out, then, you may not be bringing your insulin levels down low enough to get the optimal ketosis experience. Does that make sense?
And I think it does. I guess we'll see what her answer is. I would also say that it this generally, tell me your experience, but it's not a thing that I see very often. It's not a thing that I see people having a problem with very often unless they are specifically trying to be low fat. For the most part, I don't see a need for the average person doing carnivore to count the grams of protein they eat, and especially to be doing the 1 gram per kilogram of ideal weight or lean body mass or something like that, or goal weight. Like, you
Yeah.
just, if you're eating carnivore, you are only eating two macronutrients, protein and fat. And if you're eating whole carnivore, which you should be, you're getting the both of those together all the time. It's going to be really hard to be so far off that you're entering this state of rabid starvation.
hmm I don't know. At the times that, rabbit starvation was discussed in the historical record, it was talked about, in the context of like an actual famine and cold weather and, and all of these other like physical stressors. But, they haven't talked about it in the same way of your average American woman dieter. But
Mm-hmm.
but a woman dieting on a regular diet, whatever it might be, lowering calories, whatever, is actually going through rapid starvation. When she is eating a lot of carbs, then the energy is coming from carbs. But when she tries to go low fat and low carb, that is rapid starvation.
Yeah.
I don't know how long she keeps it up. That's often the person who's like, oh, I tried keto and it didn't work for me. um, I kind of wonder if that's not the problem. You have this person who's not yet gotten to be good at burning fat. They may not even be in ketosis. They're eating a lot of protein and still burning or still burning sugar for energy rather than fat. So they're not getting the benefits of ketosis, or they're not getting them quick enough for the healing to go on. Because I feel like there's another part that we're going to talk about too, which is yeah, we're going to get to that one. But there's a number of reasons why your insulin might, remain high, especially if you're a person, who's like got diabetes or pre-diabetes and you're trying to turn that back. There are reasons why it might still stay elevated and that you kind of have to pay attention to bring that down. But the first one is to make sure that you're not eating too lean. um, and then I saw said Carnivore Yogi has had this experience. Yeah, so I think that's what she had been describing, of one, just eating too little calories, and two, eating too little fat. And that was something that, ended up damaging her thyroid. So sometimes that happens to people, different things happen to different people. But that is something to pay attention to. And Seabliss says, I just go by how my body is feeling. I've eaten super lean and I've had over 200 grams of protein. I've also gone way low on protein, like less than 60 grams. Yeah. So it's funny, I feel like in America, we go all the way at each end of the spectrum, but, nobody ever like hangs out right here.
Well, she also said right after that she likes being in the middle,
Oh,
but
okay.
some days it's extreme
Yeah.
on one end or the other end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what any of my numbers are. I just eat.
Yeah. And then Katura says, I don't count weigh things, but I record what I eat. I need to be able to look back and see what I ate to tweak or optimize my meals. Yeah, so I think that can be helpful.
Yeah.
It was helpful for me to do a lot of recording when when I was in the process of losing that. It really did help me. So, I don't think that one has to be really. anxious about getting, the exact right number of protein or the exact right ratio of fat to protein. If it's 78, that's as good as 84, like you don't have to worry about that. But I think that you want to make sure that you're focusing on fatty sources of protein. And I frankly am not sure that I am the best judge of that because, especially coming off of what I thought was a healthy diet, is that my sense and my notion of what is appropriate is off. It's just off.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I see a lot
I
of
hadn't
people
thought
here,
about
so
that.
please hit the like, subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you can get notification every time we go live. You hadn't thought about that, Arian?
It's just like how your, well, I guess you specifically, but anyone's like previous experience would come into this and make them like not a good judge. Um, I guess not a good judge of what's appropriate. But I don't know that really anyone should be looking for someone else to tell them what is appropriate. Like we're all figuring this out for ourselves, and because of that same history that makes us biased, it also makes us have a very unique current status as far as what is the right amount of fat for me, what is the right amount of protein. Um, Even if your lean mass says you should need a certain amount, depending on what you've been doing with your body, you may or may not need that amount. You may need more or less.
Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, we definitely have to see, but I think, I mean, like for example, even with salt, I had been so indoctrinated not to eat a lot of salt that, I would move down. And so when I start trying to move up to get the amount of salt that my body actually really needs and is asking for, it's still hard for me to do that. And it took a long time and a lot of, really just shifting my mindset to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it is important to really kind of to pay attention and be aware of that. I realized during my whole keto journey, like I ate nuts at 3 o'clock every day, and I just could not have the nuts, even when I was trying really hard not to have the nuts. And it wasn't until like I was almost done with my journey, and all of a sudden, like people really started talking about electrolytes and salt and the keto diet, that I realized I was so obsessed because I was that salt that I was looking for. And if I didn't have it, that was really a problem. But had I had that information, I would have been able to stop eating nuts, which were causing me other problems.
Right.
Anyway. So, so that's one of those things where I'm like, I can't really judge myself, what I need because, there's been so much, miseducation of my mind that I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. We're all coming in some different flavor of messed up, and that definitely changes our experience. And I think for a while, like you can't even say. I was thinking about protein specifically, and excuse me, how you can come in not being able to process a certain amount of protein, like, but that might be so that might have you consuming a smaller amount than what your body really wants, just because it can't digest it right now.
Hmm.
But 3 4 months later, now you can digest it, and you're realizing, oh, I need this much protein now, or I
Hmm.
eat this much more. Does that mean that your need for protein changed? Like it's going to be hard for you to figure that out on the back end, like in
Hmm.
hindsight, because it could just be
And
that your
you
body
do
could not
actually
digest
need
it.
more. You do actually need more in the beginning because you're healing stuff. And
Right.
all the stuff that's healing is getting, I mean, it's proteins. So you probably
Yeah.
do need more in the beginning, and later on you don't need as much.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I need less now than I used to.
Hmm.
But all that is kind of a long winded way of explaining why, like, there really can't be a guideline. And
Yeah.
anyone who's trying to give you one is guessing and probably wrong.
I mean, people seem to live and be okay at that bare minimum of 40, although I don't know who's actually doing that. I tended, when I was losing weight, I tended to come in somewhere between, I aimed for 70, and as long as I was somewhere between 70 and 100, I felt that was fine. Now it's a little more than that, maybe 100 to 120 grams of protein, I think. But but I think it really just, you just kind of gotta, I think it's helpful to eat what you like, but measure it so that you kind of have a sense of where you are. And then, you can decide whether, that seems like right, or whether you want to increase or decrease. So, does it mean measuring things forever? It just might mean for a short while to kind of figure out where you are and then decide where you want to go.
Right. Which I do think is very helpful.
Mhm.
I generally tell people not to measure, but I think there can come a point where you need to.
Yeah, and if you're doing like protein shakes and stuff like that, that's not necessary, and it may be counterproductive if you're, trying to lose weight.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
So a lot of people get digestive issues from those. They can especially raise insulin levels, that whey powder, which I think is
mhm.
normally what those are made out of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. And Denise Hell had some 50/50 ground beef from US Wellness Meats. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
When you say 50/50, what does that mean?
I think that's the ratio,
Of what?
fat to lean. I think
Because
that's a
I've
super, super
tried to get it.
fatty.
I've tried to get it fattier, but it seems like it tends to fall apart when you get below like 27% or above 27% fat. But I want to hear about that because that sounds good. Now,
I
Leon says,
looked at
oh,
their
sorry, go
site.
ahead.
I never noticed meat that fatty. Now I feel like looking for it.
Okay, well, Leon Benjamin says he recently saw Stephanie has been coming down hard on red meat, and personally, he doesn't agree with her. So I don't keep up with all of her videos, so I hadn't heard this one. What's the problem with red meat now?
It. I I haven't seen her. Hmm, sorry, I'm yawning so much. I haven't seen her videos in the last like two, maybe like week or so. Before then, it was that clickbaity stuff.
Hmm.
Carnivore diet is this is why carnivore diet doesn't work, or why
Yeah,
you're sick on the carnivore diet, some stuff like
yeah,
that. Um, what's the problem with too much red meat? I feel like that's one of the recent videos she's put out, and I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know
yeah,
exactly what she's saying. My guess
yeah.
is she's saying literally too much red meat. You can have too much, or you're not having red meat that has enough fat in it. That's my
Okay.
guess.
Katura's asking who is Stephanie. Stephanie Person is another fitness influencer, and she has been recommending the carnivore diet for like the last year or two. But she's been doing like fitness and themed videos for a long time. Um, okay, and Denise says it's 50 fat to lean. Wow, that has got to be the juiciest burger ever. Um,
You can hold it together.
yeah, yeah. So, okay, so let's move on to number two. So let's see. The next problem is eating too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I am not a person, you're never going to hear me say, calories in, calories out. I know that the picture is more complex than that. There's a lot of hormonal things that go on that influences your ability to burn fat for energy. But, so we're not so as a human being, there's a lot of processes going on. So the first law of thermodynamics doesn't it doesn't really apply in the same way, because when you put energy in, things happen in the body to adjust so that the output is not going to be steady and static like that. We're not robots.
Right.
However, we do have energy needs, and at a certain point, we can put in more energy than is required, and then we have a surplus. And so what happened, the question is, what happens with that surplus? So some people are, just super whatever hormonally gifted that they tend to burn off that surplus, or I mean or it's wasted. There's like different cycling that goes on in the body that wastes energy, and they do that. But others of us, none of that happens. It's stored. So that can be an issue, and you have to look at how much you're eating and decide whether you are eating because you actually have hunger, or because it's a good time, it's an emotional event, as the carb addiction doc says. The food looks good, you feel like it right now, you're looking for a treat, you're bored, you want a break, or all the reasons why one might eat.
Right. Yeah. Um, I think that's definitely important to think about why you're eating each time you eat, and to think about if you really want that food or not. Um, if you need it right then. I think it's really easy. After a while, you can do carnivore and start to just eat just cause. And that
Not
is,
just 'cause it's good.
well,
You finally found good food.
right, but not for the biological reasons that a person needs to be eating.
Right,
You're
right.
eating, yeah, because it feels good, because it's giving you good feelings. Um, if you want to get around that, an easy way to get around that is to only have the boring stuff. Whatever is the carnivore food that you don't like, or not that you don't like, but maybe like
There
you just,
isn't boring stuff. I
oh
love
no, no,
meatballs.
I,
Every single time I make them, they're as good as the very first time I had them.
okay,
Like,
so meatballs aren't your boring thing, but I almost can guarantee that there is a boring thing for you that if I said you have to eat this every day for the next 30 days, and when you randomly get peckish and you want something, you can have water or you can have this. You're gonna look in the fridge and you're gonna see that thing and you're gonna go, oh, I don't fucking feel like it. And then you're gonna say, oh, okay, I guess I'm not hungry. You don't have
I
anything
mean,
like that,
not that's red meat. Like if it were chicken, then yes.
really.
Yeah.
So a plain hamburger, no spice on it at all. You can eat that any time of day. Doesn't matter if you just ate. You're ready for another one.
If it's salted.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected because that would bore the crap out of me.
Hmm.
Like, I love hamburgers. I can still get to a point very easily where I don't want any more and I can't think about eating another one. And that will be like, but I'll get hungry again and then they'll be really good to me again. But like
Hmm.
in between, I don't want any.
Hmm.
You couldn't entice me with one in between a meal.
Yeah. So that's,
Mm.
that's good. Lucky you.
All right, so I guess that works for some people.
Well, I often, I'm still working on like my connection to, physical body hunger and my mind. So, now I've been doing one meal a day, and it's been helpful to do that. And some days I've had to end up going really long, and actually I'm really hungry by the time that meal comes around. And so, I dive into it, and it's like, it's amazing. But then I'll eat sometimes and it hasn't been as long, or I had, my one meal later in the day, and now I'm eating the next day early in the day, and I'm not super hungry in the same way. And it's like, ah, man, I was really looking forward to the meals, looking forward to having the opportunity to eat. But then when I actually got down to it, it's like, I was actually not that hungry.
Right, yeah. I've had
Yeah,
days like that where I thought I was hungry
yeah,
and I go to eat that meal and it's just I'm already blasé about it by like the
yeah,
third bite and I'm like, what did I do? Why am I
yeah, yeah. Right. So
And
how does
then you
that
got to
happen to
decide,
you?
like, am I going to put it back, or do I just finish eating and know that I probably won't eat for the rest of the day?
Yeah. So how does that happen to you? You seemed
Oh,
like you were more in touch with your hunger than
because just because I'm in touch with it doesn't mean I always respect it. So
that.
there are
Yeah.
just times that I feel like I want to eat, and I
Right.
just do.
Right.
Um, Now lately, I made what was it? Yeah, one of the stores around here had chuck roasts on sale, so I bought like three of them. Plus, I had two already in the fridge, so I have a ton of chuck roasts right now.
Oh,
So
look
I've been
at you.
making a bunch of jerky, and it's easy on those times where I feel just kind of hungry, but I have a feeling that it's not real hunger. I just go eat one or two pieces of jerky, and I'm good for
Mhm.
like hours
Mhm.
more. But yeah, if I don't have that type of stuff around, then I go in for a full meal because I'm telling myself don't snack, eat food,
Mhm.
and I get part way into that meal and I'm like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do
Mhm.
this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's probably because I think if I had really thought about it, to like directly answer your question, if I had really thought about am I hungry or not, I probably would have said no.
Well, I have to remind myself if I have to ask the question, "Am I hungry?" I'm not hungry. Because when you're
Yeah,
really hungry, like there's no question. You're not
right.
confused. You know. So Johnny G says some people may need to be hungry or stop eating to lose weight. Laughing out loud, shocker. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, partly the carnivore community, especially in the beginning, when you had when it was a much smaller community, there was really an effort um, to fight the first thing, which, point number one, which was eating too lean. And so you had, people coming in and trying not to eat that much and trying to restrict their calories and trying to restrict their fat. And that inhibited like the ability to get into ketosis and to get comfortable and to eat enough so that you're not having, when you get cravings for carbs, like you're not also hungry, which is, making that craving problem worse.
Hmm.
So, but what ended up happening, I think, is that a lot of people went in the other direction. I mean, when you tell someone who's been dieting and restricting for years to eat as much as you want of the most delicious things, it's not surprising that some people would just go way in the other direction.
Right. I do think though that this problem is one that if the first problem is one that you have to fight in the beginning of a person's carnivore journey, most likely this is an issue number two that you would have to fight way later on in the journey for
Hmm.
most people.
Hmm.
Chances are, uh, because most of us have Jesus, it's doing it already.
Oh
Am I
no,
froze?
you are frozen.
Here we go. Well, let
All
me
right.
finish what I was saying and then I'll try to come back. But
Okay.
I feel like if you are, most of us are coming from a standard American diet. So most of us are probably overweight. We're looking to lose fat. That's going to happen kind of easily for a while. And then you get to a point where now it's like, well, I've learned these tricks. I've gotten good on carnivore and I need to make a tweak. And a lot of times that tweak is because of this issue.
Hmm. Yeah. So says, when I feel like the lion learning to be his true self on Madagascar, then I know I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's dope.
Yeah. So I think, so I haven't recommended fasting early on for people as they're, sort of trying to figure out, what works for them. But I am kind of interested in this one meal a day and how it's, really forcing me to be much more in tune with my hunger signals. So, yeah, like I see that I could easily go, 24 hours without, or at that point being, actively hungry and kind of ready for my next meal.
Mm-hmm.
So, knowing that, it's kind of like, huh, so when I'm eating like every 8 hours, 6 hours, like, not really necessary. Um, and it reminds me too of like, back in the old Atkins days, he used to say, eat as much as you need to be satisfied, but then stop. And I remember watching Go Keto with Casey. She's someone I watched early on, and she used to talk about that a lot too. That it's important to eat as much as you need to feel satisfied, but you don't need to eat like it's Thanksgiving every single day. And I've definitely done that. Okay, hopefully Arian is coming back because it's now just us. But yeah, I think that that's a really great point to really kind of think about hunger and your appetite more carefully. And the thing that I don't like about fasting also is that it tends to make my stomach shrink, so I can't eat as much as I might want to. And that is the part that is kind of like, oh man, I've got this huge spread and I cannot quite get it down. Like, I don't know if you guys watched, I had put up a post a couple days ago of ribeyes and chuck chunk bites. And that was the night before. I had eaten a little, but I didn't have enough food, so I didn't get to eat fully as much as I wanted. It was just enough to take off like the edge of the hunger. And then the next day, late in the afternoon, I finally got to make that meal. So I went into that meal hungry and ready. And there was a little part, my stomach shrunk a little bit, and it was a little like, oh man, there's so much delicious food left, but I'm gonna like try to power through. I didn't make it through my whole serving, or what I had served myself, but there you go. But I ate the whole ribeye. That was gonna get eaten.
Good stuff.
So Johnny G says, I feel for me it's hard to overeat lean protein from both a satiety and calorie standpoint. Yeah. So that's great that you don't, because that's definitely not what you want. But unfortunately, there's a lot of women who, or people who just are like, oh, I don't eat red meat. So they're left with fish and chicken, and it's going to be
Yeah.
lean. And even if
Yeah.
you add salad dressing, it's still, it's still lean. It's not going to be a lot. Okay, so let's see. Oh wait, I think Arian froze again.
It just did it again,
Oh gosh.
like 5 minutes in.
Oh no. Um, and Johnny G says Arian's on the wrong side. I know when I brought you back, your camera went to the other side. Okay, so Esther says, Hi, carnivore peeps. 24-hour eating modifications can easily occur with the carnivore way of eating. Yeah. And says, What is a hormone that makes us think we're hungry? Ghrelin. Yeah, ghrelin. That's the one you're thinking of. And I think leptin is what makes us feel full. So, Bayet says the purpose of fasting is to learn self-control and self-consciousness. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that's one of the things that you can learn through the act of fasting. And for all of you who are here, again, hit the like button, subscribe, and the little bell icon so you can get notification every time I go live. But also, I wanted to let you know the fasting doctor is coming on our live stream on let's see, it's coming on our live stream on Thursday. So we are going to be talking um, all about fasting and stuff. So definitely, you want to make sure you're here. Mark this down on your calendar. The fasting doctor, I think that's her handle on Instagram. Dr. Cecily or Dr. Cecily Ann, I think is her name. Um, she is great and really has a lot of great information about fasting. And I think she lost about 80 pounds doing that. So she's got a lot to share. So make sure you're here. Um, okay. And Arian is back. Yes.
hopefully for good. I'm not scrolling with the phone stuff now. I'm just using the webcam. It's not as good, but I seem to have less problems using it.
Okay. Oh, that's right. So this was happening on the phone. Gotcha.
Mm.
So Katura says, I can overeat the heck out of lean meat like chicken and fish. Love red meat. Um, yeah.
I don't.
And I think it's easy to overeat on lean meat if that's what you have on your plate. Like when I had the brisket that was super, super lean, I ate it. I was hungry. And so I ate it until I was not hungry. But I definitely ate way more protein than I would have had it been a very fatty brisket. I would have eaten more of the fat and I would have eaten less of the protein. So
So
I do think it's
what's the
easy to overeat.
what's the line for overeating? What are we saying is overeating the lean meat?
I don't think we should give a number, like we just said with point number one. There isn't a number. It's
Right.
more how you feel. Like I can tell, so when I test my fasting blood glucose, it might be in the 90s in the next morning. So that's how I can tell that I ate more protein. And I remember the person who shall not be named, but Sean Baker had said early on that he had the same problem when he ate, leaner and a lot of protein, his blood sugar would be higher. And so the vegans kind of jumped on him and were like, see, you're getting insulin resistance from eating, meat. And his explanation was that it wasn't that big a deal. Like when you're eating, well, actually, he didn't have a great explanation, but he was saying that it wasn't that big a deal, and that when you're eating this way, you're healthy, and so it's okay. But I think he was trying to say, or he went on later to say that this thing where, um, you can, if you're eating so much lean protein, you can get to the point where your body's kind of burning it as sugar, and so you are raising your insulin a little, and so on.
Okay. So we're saying overeat to the point that, well, we don't know. Well, my guess is most of the people talking about this, it's in our chat probably aren't checking their glucose every time and saying, "Oh yeah, I know I overate because my glucose went up." Like you did the test to know that when you ate that brisket, but just generally, then I wonder what they mean when they say I do overeat lean or I can't overeat. Like what is that line of overeating from? What is the line that separates overeating from just I had some amount?
I don't think we know. I mean, I think that those are the kinds of questions that are being figured out now as
That's
each.
no, I mean something different. I mean they're
Oh,
saying I'm overeating lean meat. How do you know that? How do they know that? Like so your evidence was your glucose went up. Your blood glucose the next morning was in the 90s as opposed to I guess 80s or 70s. How do they know? Like we're talking about overeating lean meat.
hmm. Well, one of the other explanations I've heard is that you still feel hungry, or like you desire something, or you don't have a level of satiation at the end of the meal.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense. And then I think if
So you
you're
might
feeling
be physically full, like your stomach is extended, but you still feel like, ah, there's still
yeah,
something I want.
okay. Ugh, that does not. I feel like I've said like 8 times between today and yesterday that does not sound fun about a thing that very obviously isn't fun. But
Well, I think this is what we were discussing last week when I was saying that I can't find meat that's not lean. Now, I went to Whole Foods the other day and they had two grass-fed briskets that they hadn't trimmed yet.
mm,
And then they had two that were trimmed. And those were the two were on top and they were displayed, but the ones with the fat were underneath. So I ended up buying them for $1 million. And then I posted a picture of one of the pieces, and someone said, "Oh my God, I thought this was a slice of pecan pie." And then everyone else was like, yeah, I thought the same thing. So, but the fat was that thick on it that it was like almost as thick. It was like a, half as thick as the total amount of lean that was there. So, but I think that I have been perpetually feeling that way where I have not been getting enough fat and just haven't kind of bumped it up. But that meal and the ribeye meal, I hit it.
Good stuff.
So, yeah. But I'm saying again as well, if you've never had that experience, you don't know what that feels like, you don't know what feeling truly satiated feels like. So you kind of have to kind of go all in on the fat so that you can have that experience and know what it is you're missing because a lot of times many of us think, oh, I can't stop eating, I've got, I don't know, I'm addicted to food, or I love to eat, or it's a hobby or whatever. But when you hit that fat point, it's kind of like, oh, I just never actually ate.
That makes sense. And that might actually explain what I've been feeling lately. Um, which is like I just like Siebla said in the chat. She eats and she still feels hungry. She doesn't even feel physically full. She's just tired of eating, but still hungry. I have felt that way. I have eaten and felt like I'm done eating.
Hmm.
I don't want to eat more, or I can feel the volume of food that I ate and I feel like it should be enough, but I'm not satisfied like I've been at other times. And I don't even mean the like, sometimes, even in being carnivore, we can chase the euphoria of like being really full. And I don't
Hmm.
know exactly how healthy that is, but I don't think it's always that. I think there are times, I think there's been plenty of times lately, I'll say in the past like month or two, where I felt like I want more, but I don't want more of what I had because probably what I had was too lean.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there are other times, like I think we talked about, like I described the fat trimmings to you that I have, like with the little bit of lean on them, and you're like, oh yeah, just fry those up, give me a bowl of that, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I've literally done that for meals and been good for hours off of that, and it wasn't even that much. So
Yeah.
I think we are like, as carnivores, um, we're kind of back in the too lean point, but like there, it's really hard to get enough fat because everybody just trims the meat way too much.
Yeah, so I that is precisely the point. And I do kind of want to drive that home, or that was the point I wanted really driven home, is that paying attention to that satisfaction level. And I don't think, part of the reason for not wanting to give a specific number is that that number is going to change,
Yep,
daily, weekly, seasonally, depending on what you've done, what the weather is, all those things. So there's no point in me saying you got to get this amount of fat, but your body will tell you. But I think your body can't tell you to do things until it's been exposed to it and knows that's a good thing. So if you've never eaten liver, you're not going to get an urge to eat liver, presumably because your body doesn't know. So
that
you've
makes sense.
kind of got to have that experience of eating fat all the way, like right up to the point of sickness. And not, and I think it's important not to like guzzle it in liquid form because you're gonna miss that point, but when you're eating it bite by bite of solid fat, it's going slow enough that your brain and your stomach can be in sync and you'll
Mhm.
get that signal. um,
Yeah.
but but I think it might be an interesting experiment and worth doing to try some meals where you're eating. Carnivore Yogi was on here the other one of the earlier streams, and she said that she was eating 85-15, sometimes even 90-10. It might be worth doing that experiment to see what that feels like so that you can then decide whether that feels better or worse to you, because you might find that that actually feels better. And way back in the olden days when Atkins was around, he would do for, especially for people who had a hard time getting into ketosis or who were having a hard time losing weight, he would put them on a 3 or 5 day fat fast where they're eating 90% of their calories from fat, or more. So that I think is kind of, I mean, that's telling, that we may not be getting enough fat, even though we think that we are.
Yeah,
And so I,
that's
Mhm.
trying to know about that. It's really interesting that he would, to get people started, feed them mostly fat. Not even mostly like 60%, but like just about only fat.
yeah, I think it was, it wasn't for everybody, but I think it was like, you, it would be like cream cheese and macadamia nuts and like salami. Like those are the things that you could eat. Because
Because it's Atkins, so he's going to
well,
throw in that kind of stuff.
I mean, back in the 70s, I don't know. I guess you just couldn't tell people to go and eat raw suet. So what else do you have people eat?
Right. It's just also he loves cream cheese. Like, I don't know if I ever talked
Yeah.
about it on any of these lives, but I bought the very very original first Atkins book, like that edition, and I
Uh-huh.
read through most of it. I got to the point of him talking about there's like 100 pages of recipes, and that's when I got really bored. But
Yeah.
they love cream cheese, and a lot of those recipes like cream
Yeah.
cheese and yeah, nuts too, actually.
So Esther, thank you. Thank you for making the contribution. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad you're finding this information to be helpful and useful to you. So for everybody who's still watching, hit that like button. Don't forget to do that.
Hmm.
Um, okay. So I see Portia says that I just don't feel as satisfied when I eat other things besides beef. I agree. And I think,
Samesies.
yeah, and I think it's partly the fat, but I think it's also partly like the contents of the meat itself.
Yeah, I think I I have a theory that we can just feel the nutrients that are in the food. Our body detects them and gives us a bunch of good signals that says, "Yeah, this is good, and you've gotten enough." And it's okay, I'm great. We got enough protein. We got all the vitamins and stuff we need, and I think red meat does that the best.
Yeah, agreed. Now I see Sibelius says, but so blood glucose in the 90s or even low hundreds doesn't necessarily point to insulin resistance. So yeah, those numbers are not what you wouldn't go to a doctor and be like, oh my God. But it is higher. And especially, when I eat more fatty, my blood glucose, the fasting blood glucose might be in the 70s, usually in the 70s, sometimes in the 80s. So that is a market difference for me. So it's not the actual number, but the difference. And I do remember, again, that he who shall not be named, but we're talking about him, Sean Baker did say that his numbers went from in the 70s when he was eating more fatty to into the 90s or low hundreds when he was doing I don't know, when he was more lean.
Yeah,
So I think that what matters is there being a significant change for you. But yeah, being in the 90s or hundreds is not a problem. It's not it's not indicative of a massive problem, but I think that we have, gradations of insulin resistance that we're trying to heal. So even as we're losing weight and we're doing better, that doesn't mean, we are making progress on that insulin resistance, but there could still be issues and problems there. And we're going to get to the next thing, which is, well, perhaps we should move on to the next topic anyway, as we continue the conversation. Okay, so
have
we're
we
gonna
said everything we wanted to say about eating too much? Because we're going
yeah.
to talk about. So I have other thoughts on it, but they're going to come up later. So yeah, I think I'm good on it.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip the order here, and I'm gonna go to number 4, and then we'll
Okay,
come back to number 3.
cool.
Um, But
That's a good.
number four, yeah, is sort of an inaccurate assessment of what you're actually eating and also how often you're eating. Um, and I don't think we give frequency as much importance or attention as we should. So, every time you eat, your insulin does rise a little bit, and that's okay. That's normal, and, that's part of the process. But if we're also snacking and nibbling and eating a little bit multiple times frequently through the day, that means you're going to be raising your insulin. So even if you're eating all the right things, that could still be presenting a problem in terms of lowering your insulin all the way, if that's what your goal is.
Right. Um, and the way I think about this topic is it tells you what you might need to tweak. So we talked earlier. I think it was Kentora said that she tracks her food. She doesn't track like what exactly like the amounts that she's eating, but she just tracks what she's eating. She's not measuring everything. Um, I think you need that if you're feeling a stall and if you're trying to deal with that in a very like kind of calculated way. This is how you get there. You need to know what's happening. You need to know when you're eating. You need to know what you're eating. You probably should start checking amounts. I still don't think you need to check calories, but the general weight of the foods that you're having, I think, are important. Um,
Hmm.
and that lets you know what you might feel like changing in the future. It gives you all those data points so you can decide. You become your own test rat, and you say, all right, I'm gonna up the fat for the next 2 weeks and see what that does.
Yeah.
Or instead of eating this kind of meat, I'm gonna eat this kind because it just generally comes with more fat. Or it turns out I'm not eating the way I thought I was,
Hmm. Yeah.
which happens to a
That's a
lot of
big one.
people.
Yeah, I don't eat any carbs. Oh, wait, you mean but yesterday? Oh, well, if you mean
Oh,
yesterday.
my, my 6 cups of coffee with 3 tablespoons of heavy cream in each one. Oh,
Yeah,
oh, you mean
it's a pint of
heavy
cream.
cream? If you add enough heavy cream up, there are carbs in it. Oh, did not know that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, this is when you get a journal or you open Notepad on your computer or whatever you're doing and you track that stuff.
yeah. So, and I mean, people get real down on tracking, and it is the wonderful thing about carnivore is that you don't have to track. But if you are finding that you're not moving in the direction that you want to, you have to stop and take stock of where you are, and that means writing it down and paying attention to it. Not forever, but you just
Yeah.
got to be aware of where you are so that you can decide where you want to go next. And all the experimenting and tweaking isn't going to mean anything if you don't know where you started to be able to compare to where you got to.
Right.
And if you're making changes every other day, you're also not going to be able to get very far because you're not giving yourself enough time to, accurately judge the effects of the changes that you've made.
Hmm.
So now I see Portia says, or maybe you gained weight, that would tell you that you overate, right? And I think you don't know. You want to. I think that we're pointing out some things to you that you can look to decide whether why you gain that weight. So it could be that you overate, but it also could be that you're not eating enough fat that's causing you to kind of eat more and make your hormonal balance less optimal. It could also be that you're eating too frequently, even if it's the same amount of food.
Yeah.
But I interrupted you, Arian. I know you were trying to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, like I remember now. I have no idea. I'm thinking about all the different reasons that you might gain weight, and if you can, I'm dead on that question now. I lost whatever I was saying before.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Virginia. So glad you made it. And says carnivore or lipivore? Exactly. We're lipivores. Really, we're lipivores.
So does carnivore mean exactly lean meat, or does carnivore just mean we eat animal? Because I would say both, because that's how I use carnivore.
Well, I mean, I don't know, people use words however they want, right? But in biology, the definition of a carnivore is any animal that eats more than 70% of its calories from animal sources.
Right.
So by that definition, even when we're doing keto, we're still carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
and actually, I think that's the definition of a hypercarnivore.
yeah.
So a regular carnivore, by biological definitions, is like 50% of their food coming from animal sources.
Right.
So we are like apex carnivores. I don't know what you
We're
define us as.
hyper exclusive carnivores when we're living right. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say both. We're carnivores, but in the realm of carnivores, there are definitely some that can survive on mostly lean meat, and
Hmm.
we are not them. That
Hmm.
is not good for us. We are lipivores within carnivore.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so the fasting stuff can happen naturally. But so I don't in the beginning while you're just trying to get keto adapted and and used to eating carnivore, I don't recommend artificially in pushing fasting, but you should eat when you're hungry and stop when you're satisfied.
Mm,
So um, that could mean that you end up waiting so many hours before you feel like you're hungry again. So that's totally fine. And I saw it. NJ Life was saying the same that fasting just sort of naturally happened, which for most people it does. That's what you want to have happen.
yeah, and that's how I eat.
Hmm.
Um, 2 meals a day, split up by various amounts of time. Probably
Hmm.
the longest amount of time ends up being about 8 hours, maybe nine,
Hmm. Yeah.
sometimes shorter.
So Angie says those fat fasts raise your triglycerides, or that's what Maria Emmerich has said, or has an article on that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think that those, and I think that Dave Feldman also, like in his cholesterol code or his cholesterol formula, has like so for those of you who don't know, Dave Feldman is somebody who's done a lot of research on cholesterol and the testing and all of it, and has found that those numbers are actually very volatile and they really depend on what you've eaten over the past couple of days. So he kind of came up with a protocol that will help you make those numbers drop down very low or much lower for people who have insurance or whatever requirements they have these requirements to get those numbers down or be prescribed a statin. So he has a protocol, and fasting is some portion of that. So yeah, I can imagine that doing that fat fast will temporarily raise and lower different things, but you're not staying on the fat fast permanently. This is really just a way to kind of, get get yourself into deeper ketosis, lower the insulin levels, and and that's it. So I don't, we're not, it, well, Atkins wasn't recommending people stay on it like that. I know that I remember watching Jimmy Moore having done an experiment, and I think he did 2 weeks at like 90% fat. Um, and from what I heard, it didn't, it wasn't something he felt like he could keep up with. There were problems for him with that.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But, um, but I think that, we just have to, to try it and see. But that was, he was doing it for like 2, maybe even 3 weeks. Definitely was not a couple days.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's
yeah.
and that's longer than Atkins would ever have put anyone on that sort of diet too, right?
Yeah, yeah. And and I don't think, and I think that our appetites would drive us to, we might do that for a couple of days and then our appetites would be like, whoa, can we get some chicken breast?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe not. Even if not that extreme, just to say, all right, now can I get some meat with this fat? I still do need protein.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Esther says, lately I've noticed a hunger pain later as night progresses. So I get a small piece of cheese and a slice of bacon. Does that mean I could be doing harm to my results? Um, Not sure if it's habit or hunger. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if that is so. When we say harming our results, we could be talking about, is this stopping me from having the most optimum, fastest results that I could possibly have? Or are we saying, is this moving me backwards? I definitely do not think that eating a slice of bacon and a piece of cheese at night is going to move you backwards.
Hmm.
Like I don't think you do that and then you wake up and you're a quarter pound heavier or something and you've got extra fat on your arms or something. Like I don't believe that at all.
Yeah.
Um, it may slow you down a little bit. Maybe. I even kind of doubt that though. But what that says to me, and this is probably the exact same thing that I'm feeling, is you need more fat. You're not getting enough. It's not lasting.
Yeah. I think that's what that is saying as well. So
Because
I don't know, Esther, if that means eating more cheese and more bacon at your meal or trying to get fattier sources of meat or what.
yeah, because like I'm feeling it right now. Actually, I know that when I get done this live, I'm gonna feel like eating, but I
Yeah.
don't feel hungry for like a whole steak or something.
Hmm. Yeah. Agreed. No, I feel hungry for some fried up beef fat trimmings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crunchy
Oh
one.
wait, Invincible says we're both froze
Really? Both of us. Um, wow. I don't see it, but okay.
with eat emojis. So maybe that was a joke and I just didn't catch it.
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. If someone else
Um,
says it's frozen, then no. Esther didn't mention it. Okay, I guess we're fine.
yeah. Okay. So Invincible VS says there are fasting studies that show that the maximum insulin drop happens in the first 18 hours. That's why I do one meal a day. Um, I wonder if that is true for us. I feel like all the fasting studies are on regular people, not people who are already in ketosis. So that first 3 days of a fast for regular people, you've got different stuff going on because they're trying to drop and get into ketosis, but we're already there. So I wonder, I really wonder about that. But thanks for bringing that up, Invincible. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, because our insulin should generally be low all the time. And unless you eat like there are some amino acids within protein that are insulinogenic but or glucogenic, which then will have the corresponding insulin response, like
yeah.
that is it's low enough that unless you're trying to get that effect, or you like we talked about with number one, like you're in that rabid starvation, I'm just eating protein and no fat, like it's really
Hmm.
hard to get enough to do that,
Hmm.
especially on a regular basis. I would think that I wonder how much insulin drops. I guess this is the exact thing you said. Sorry. It took my brain a minute to get there, and then I realized I'm saying the same thing as you. Like,
Yeah.
our insulin is already low all the time.
Yeah.
How much does it drop when we fast?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, now I will say, I do keep track of my blood glucose and my ketones when I'm fasting. And so, usually day one and day two, my fasting blood glucose is in like the 70s. But on day three, that's when I see it, I've seen it drop, um, into the 60s and into the 50s, and then once dipping into the 40s, which
Oh,
I know, I know. And I was like,
holy crap.
this is not good. I know. Um,
Really low.
yeah, that's really low. So, so I don't know. For me, I don't know if that means, hey, this is too long for you. You don't need to do it that often, or you don't need to do it that long, but maybe do it more often. Um, but even, even a couple of days ago, I had done a longer fast. So I actually hit 24 hours for my one meal a day. And I had tested my blood glucose that morning and it was 62, which
Mm.
is, that's low. I mean, we're getting close to that 50 mark. So, yeah, I mean, there is definitely a drop for me as I go further along. But yeah. So to me that says, that eating frequency really does matter because the food is not changing. Like what I'm actually having isn't changing, and even the amount is not changing dramatically.
Right. I really wish though, I wish there was as easy as it is to test your blood glucose, because that we're really using that as a proxy for insulin at this point. I
Hmm.
really wish there was a way that we could finger prick and test insulin,
Yeah.
because that's what I care about more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so how do you feel when your glucose is in the 40s?
I did not feel great at that time. But I was going to the doctor as well, so this was tested in my doctor's office. This wasn't even me doing it myself. So, one, it begs the question, like, what is going on with my doctors that no one was like, hey, what's happening? Something's
Oh,
wrong with you. Nobody
so
said
they
anything.
saw it that low and didn't bat an eye.
I don't know what they saw, but I looked at the results of my tests later and I saw it
Mm.
there. And I was like, are you serious? Nobody said anything? So,
Hmm.
yeah, I know. But two, I
Get a
wasn't
new
feeling,
doctor.
yeah, probably, probably. But two, I wasn't feeling very well. I was feeling a little shaky and weak, and
Mm.
it was probably definitely time to break the fast. But normally my blood glucose is somewhere in the 70s. It can range from low to high 70s.
So you were feeling the hypoglycemia at that point.
Yeah. I mean, my
All right.
ketones were also very high. If they weren't super high at the time, I would have been more concerned. I think they were in like the 4 range when that
Wow.
time that it was 48, it was like 4 point, something.
Wow.
So,
It's
yeah,
really high for you, I think.
very, very. So that was the only reason where it was like, okay, maybe I won't die, but this doesn't seem good. This just doesn't seem good. Yeah,
I haven't died yet, and I may not die, but I don't know that I want to really test it.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe I'll just eat.
yeah, yeah. So I think for me, meal frequency is probably important, but at the same time, I like eating, and so it's kind of like
Yeah.
um, yeah, okay. So let's go back to point three, which we had skipped over,
Right.
um, which is impatience.
So sometimes you just gotta chill. And I know that doesn't sound fun. I know it's really not the life that a lot of us live, but you just gotta relax sometimes. You just gotta let your body do what it's gonna do. You gotta let your body heal. And healing and weight loss a lot of times are not gonna happen at the same time. And they're not gonna happen to the same levels at the same time. So you'll feel like, oh, it's been a while. I don't know what's happening. Your body could be healing. You could have gut healing that needs to happen, autoimmune stuff. Um,
Absolutely.
there's, I'm trying to think of what else is the really big one. You got your autoimmune, you got your gut healing. Um, oh, and just the fact that, oh, wow, your video was lost for a second. Are you back?
I'm back
Okay.
with more water.
Um, no, but on the YouTube now it's just me. But not forget what I was gonna say.
Sorry, I was
The
trying not
gut
to
healing.
interrupt you. I was so
You
thirsty I had to get water, but I didn't want to say anything. And now my not saying anything has distracted you and made you
it's
forget
really I distracted myself. You can't even take the
it.
blame for that. But I was talking about gut healing. I was saying there's autoimmune stuff. Um, yeah, I don't remember. Oh, just I guess I don't know enough about how insulin drops, like how quickly it drops. Is it linear? Is it just I'm not eating carbohydrates anymore? So my insulin just gradually and continually drops, or is it like kind of spurts and fits? Because I know that your insulin is also attached to a lot of your healing processes. Um, so you're not going to you're not going to see a linear weight loss just because you're losing 2 pounds a week now. Doesn't mean that you're going to always see that. I had what I felt like was a stall for a really long time, and then just started noticing more weight dropping.
Hmm.
Like sometimes I think you just have to be content with feeling good and really give yourself time.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's the beauty of this diet, as opposed to other ones. Like, I don't think that carnivore necessarily brings about faster weight loss than other people or other diets. I think
No.
it brings about, an easier lifestyle. So when you're trying to eat, 1,000 calories a day and get it all from like salad and, carrot sticks, that sucks. But when you're getting it from, a bacon cheeseburger, like you can do that for weeks on end and not really feel bad. So it allows that time to pass in a much more comfortable way, but it doesn't pass faster.
Yeah. And in fact, yeah, I would just flat out say carnivore is not the fastest way to weight loss. I think
Hmm.
it's the healthiest way to weight loss.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the fastest way to weight loss is one, a dry fast, two, a wet water fast, three, a protein sparing modified fast, and then you come in with keto, and then regular calorie counting.
So every time someone says this, I get lost because it's just so many words that don't make sense to me. What is a protein sparing modified fast?
Yeah, so that is a, doctors like they came up with like the fastest way to lose weight to get like, especially to get obese patients to lose some weight and to lose some inflammation before surgery. So basically, you figure out exactly how much protein your body needs for your size and height and activity level, and then you eat exactly that much protein and no extra fat. So that means eating whey protein shakes, egg whites, chicken breast, and fish, lean fish, nothing else, no added fat, nothing. And sometimes they'll allow you to eat vegetables, but sometimes it's straight up carnivore. And then you do that, and so that forces your body to, it only has enough protein for what its daily needs are, and then there's no extra fat, so it's forcing your body to take from your own fat. And there was a guy, Lyle McDonald, who wrote a book that you could download online. It was an ebook about it was a protein sparing modified fast, and he kind of like brought it to the bodybuilding, I don't know, fitness community. And but he too was like, he always, when he introduced the book, was like, don't do this. Like, just diet normally. This is if there's an emergency situation where you need to lose 10 pounds in a week, but don't do this. This is not the way to do it. And you will feel awful as you do it. You will feel awful as you do it. So that, so that's what that was point one that we went over, eating too lean. That's, you can do it, but you can't do it very long. And so he basically broke it up into three categories. So people who had a small amount of weight to lose could only do it for a week. After that, it tanks your hormones and really messes up your metabolism. If you have a little bit of weight to lose, you can do it for 2 weeks. And if you had like more than 50 pounds to lose, he said you could go on as long as maybe 6 weeks, but you have to see how you feel. But in any case, he said you're gonna feel like crap. You're just gonna feel terrible.
Sounds awful. So
Yeah.
basically, so like we call it the other thing a fat fast. This is a protein fast.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
is just protein, just enough protein for you to live as calculated
Yeah.
by.
And it's the poorest quality proteins because remember, you're choosing the leanest ones. So you don't even choose beef because there's might be too much fat in that. So we're talking about protein shakes, which is the most of what people have, then chicken breast, and then like, tilapia.
Ugh.
So it's like, it's just the poorest quality protein as well. Yeah. So
So we
this is
have.
what I did early on when I went carnivore. I was like, oh, let me try this, see if I lose any weight. And I remember, and I think I went longer too. I mean, I was probably 2, almost 3 weeks of it. But like,
Oh no,
yeah,
8
yeah. But I just wasn't really paying attention to how long it was. But and then somehow I got some short ribs. So I decided I made short ribs. And that morning I ate them for breakfast. And like within 20 minutes, it was like the choirs were singing. I mean, like angels were just surrounding me singing. And I felt this deep welling of joy just bubbling up through me. And it was in that moment that I realized, oh my God, it's that fat. I mean, it was really the fat. And I looked in retrospect, I could look back and see that I was becoming more and more depressed and irritable over that few weeks time. But I didn't notice it in the midst of it because it wasn't like a significant drop. It was just something that happened slowly over time. So in retrospect, I could see it. But getting that fat in, I mean, it was like night and day. I mean, a switch literally flipped 20 minutes after I ate the short ribs. It just flipped.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've
So,
seen
mhm.
Leah Keith talks about a kind of similar switch and a similar feeling of like heavens opened up and it's like when the clouds open Simpsons and the light shines on you and the choir's singing. Like I think she was vegetarian for a while, eating super terrible, and then had, I think it was heavy cream
Mhm.
and a very similar feeling.
Mhm. Yeah. So Couture is saying that's what I was thinking for the first point, but I see the difference. It's a strategic way to eat protein, but not ideal. Makes sense. So, right. So it might be strategic if it's your job and you're a bodybuilder and you've got to, get really lean and cut for a show, where you're going to be winning a prize or, making money or whatever, then yeah, like feeling horribly depressed is okay. Like you got to, make your money.
Yeah, if that's what you're going for, um,
Hmm.
it's definitely in the top three miserable but
Yeah.
effective ways to lose weight, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so I don't know. So I would say the first three methods I said about how to lose weight fastest, I don't recommend doing it that way. I think that we have to build some patience and do it slower. Um,
Yeah.
oh, Invincible VS says Lyle McDonald is the one that said insulin drops the most in 18 hours, and he use 100 grams in his protein sparing method. Yeah, well, I had that book. I remember him using, there was a formula, so it depended, on man or woman, whether you were, well, he insisted that you must exercise, you must weight lift during the doing this because, he was a fitness person. Um, you gotta, because if you're not using your muscle, you're also gonna lose it. So using it was a way to make sure that, your body didn't do anything to the
Uh,
lean mass and only, went for the fat. Um,
that makes
yeah,
sense. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it now. I was not happy about that at first because I thought, so you're giving me this miserable diet and you're telling me to work out? But all right, there's logic behind it.
Yeah. But but again, he would say you're only going to do it for a week because, that's it. Like this is not, he was very clear, this is not a diet. You should not be doing this long term. This is not the way to go. This is if you have messed up and not prepared yourself properly. This is a last minute, effort. Yeah. And then, but yeah, so the dry fast and the water fast would be perhaps the faster way to lose weight, but definitely not the comfortable way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with all those first three, like you're not having fat, so you're not getting enough of you're not getting the fat soluble vitamins that you need. You're not getting the fat to tell your body we're not in starvation, so we can go ahead and up our metabolism. And that's part of that like really steady energy that carnivores feel is our body is not trying to conserve energy nearly as hard as on any actual diet that a person would be following.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay. And then the other thing too with impatience is, um, I think that a lot of times people don't recognize the successes that have been occurring. I mean, definitely
Yeah.
seen pictures and also within my own pictures, of people who've been carnivore for 1 or 2 years, where even where they've been weight stable, their bodies have changed. So you also have to be really careful to properly measure yourself and, you know, and be thoughtful about what you're comparing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like I look at people who are athletes who are my size, which for me ends up being like boxers and like UFC people, and they'll be like the same size as me. They look exactly the same as me, besides like way more lean and muscular, but like generally same build, same height, and everything.
Hmm.
And they're in weight classes, so I know exactly what they weigh, and it's like
Hmm.
155, 140, and I'm like, oh, so there's a lot more fat that I could be dropping and still be this same size.
Hmm.
There is still more that could happen, and it gives me confidence to know that like I'm not actually stalling, not in any important way. My weight could be exactly, or I could feel exactly the same. Weight could still be dropping, and I could actually still be putting on muscle.
Hmm.
Like when you get a feel for what your body really could do at about this same shape, it gives you an idea of what a stall like really could be, and
Hmm.
that you're probably not in a stall right now.
Hmm.
Like, I, or another way to say what I'm trying to say is that your composition could change a whole lot.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's what we do see with people, that their composition is changing, even if like the number on the scale isn't changing. But if you're not measuring and you don't have a way to measure, then you won't notice that. So,
Yeah.
since we've had, these difficult times in the world and everyone is home, many of us haven't put on clothes in like months. So if you're walking around in the same, ratty old sweatpants and baggy this and that, you don't know if you're gaining or losing weight.
Right. And you know what? We're going to pause right there. Here's a public service announcement from Arian. Put on some clothes. Act, act like you're going out. Like, if you don't know what you look like in clothes because you haven't put any on since March, I think that's a problem. And I think you should put on some clothes for a little while and be happy with how you look. And you might find out, oh snap, I did lose weight. I did get smaller. I don't not I lost weight, I lost fat. I really wish we could change lost weight to lost fat.
Hmm.
Um like that you do notice the difference. But you would notice the difference if you were wearing the clothes that you feel like you look good in or the clothes that you're trying to look good in, as opposed to, yeah, if you're walking around in pajamas all day, you'll have no idea.
Yeah.
And
I
I think you got
a
to get
lot
out
of
of the doldrums of lockdown. Like,
yeah.
okay, so there's a pandemic. That doesn't mean that you should never look good. Like, you want to look good for yourself too, not just
Yeah,
because you're leaving
lockdown
the
is not a
house.
reason to let your look slip.
Yeah,
That being said, I love staying in my pajamas all day.
I can't do it. I got to put on clothes. If I don't wear clothes, I get depressed after a while.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Johnny G, thank you. Some people look good, even if it's an Obama t-shirt. Yes, I am wearing this in honor of today. I wear like a little bit of a nicer shirt at least.
Yeah, I told Ada before we started, like, "Oh, you're casual today," and she was like, "Nope, it's an Obama shirt. This has a purpose.
Yeah,
This is not just me relaxing."
yeah. I don't have any vote thing, and my vote sticker fell off, and so yeah, I just
And
did not.
see, I voted absentee, so I turned in my thing yesterday, and I realized when I got there, like, they don't. There's no person there to give you a sticker. It's just a box. So
I think
people
some
were like,
places a sticker came with the ballot. Because I
"Oh,
have seen people walking around the last 2 weeks with I voted stickers. So I don't know where these stickers came from, but people have been having them.
oh," and see, I assumed all those were from people who went to early voting.
I don't know. But were you able to hand in your ballots for early voting? Because I know today people were allowed to bring their ballot instead of waiting to vote.
To the polling place.
Uh-huh.
Well, okay, so for Maryland, you had to request a ballot. And if you requested a ballot and for some reason wanted to go vote in person, then you would need to go there and sign up for a provisional ballot.
Hmm.
So, and I think if you also could turn in your absentee ballot at a polling place today. So I imagine if you did that, you might get a sticker too. Maybe not. I don't
Hmm.
know. But like
I don't
just for
know.
me, my experience yesterday, unless there was a sticker in the package that I didn't notice, there was no way for me to get one. You just go up
Hmm.
to the box, you turn in your stuff. Like the guy ahead of me was like taking a selfie because he, he's like taking a selfie
This
with
is an important
the,
moment. Yeah.
the box behind him because yeah, you want to floss that you just voted, and there's no way to do that because
Yeah.
I think for some of us we didn't get these stickers.
Yeah. I took a picture. I needed to.
I should have. I missed the opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what? I could just go. I could go drive in front of the box now and take the picture if
Yeah.
it's still there.
Sure. Sure.
I'm
Um,
not going to though. I'm lazy.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so Esther said some places in North Carolina gave out pens that have printed on them, I voted. Actually, they gave us a pen today too. I didn't even look at what it said on it, but I think it probably did say something about I voted. Oh, and I'm hearing North Carolina looks like it's going blue, as is Ohio and Pennsylvania. So
Ohio going.
I don't know about the rest of you, but like I have well two clusters of friends who are like live tweeting like every second. So I must have
Uh,
300 text messages in my phone, but I see them keep going across my screen, so I'm seeing little updates of like what's happening.
and that is exactly what I don't want. My phone's do not disturb right now, but that would be the last thing I want is people telling me,
Blow
giving
by
me up
blow.
to the minute updates. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
my stress levels don't need that.
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely am planning on taking a bath after tonight, after our live stream. I do think reducing stress, I didn't put this on the list, but reducing stress is really important, and reducing and increasing how much sleep you get is also really important.
Yes.
So, where you can find ways to reduce stress. And tonight, of all nights,
Yeah.
stress
Yeah.
reduction.
Get your rest on. And that actually, I should have put a pin on that point more clearly, but that was part of what I was saying, or why I think it's important to still put on clothes sometimes.
Hmm.
Like, just because you're in the house more often doesn't mean that you should stop doing the things that you would normally do to take care of yourself and to feel good. You need to keep your stress levels under control. And I think for a lot of us, that is putting on clothes. That is trying to look good, making an effort. And that goes along with all the other things that you can do to reduce stress. And the same with the sleeping. Like,
Hmm.
that probably could have been number 6 on here.
It could be.
Like
Um,
stress and sleep. I
yeah.
feel like a lot of people, they want carnivore to fix the health part of their life, but there's still all this other stuff in your life that you refuse to change.
Yeah. Well,
Like if
I
you're
think that's really an interesting thing too, because like with carnivore, I find that started paying attention to, um, my appetite and the signals my body was sending. And once I start listening to that, then that forces you to examine all the different aspects of your life and where your actions are not meeting your needs and all the different places where your life is falling short. And so I feel like it happens that carnivore ends up changing your entire life, and people very often like leave jobs, leave toxic relationships, leave toxic situations in pursuit
Mhm.
of like happiness, because once you start to get a little happiness, it's kind of like, oh man, this is awesome. I'll take more of this.
Right. Yeah. So for me, it's ended up being really relaxing and really good, but I do find that I need to still put on clothes. Like this is what I wore all day. I didn't do this just for the live.
I'm not opposed to clothes. I'm just saying I like I love laying around in my PJs.
No, I feel it. I,
Yeah,
I do that some days.
yeah,
Or I'll get through half the day and then decide it's about time to take a shower and put on clothes now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so impatience, those are all the things. Trying to go too fast, doing things that will, harm you. I mean, I had some crazed ideas about fasting and how often I should be fasting, and those things didn't really mesh up with what my body wanted to do. So, yeah, you got to be careful about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and Miss M says the early voting packet has a sticker enclosed. Yeah, I think there were some stickers that got around, but somehow your envelope missed a sticker. I'm sorry,
I
Arian. I
I
really am. That
I
sucks.
really didn't see one. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you might not have gotten one. I mean, I don't know. You're in Maryland. Who knows? I don't know.
Well,
Is
she's in
Maryland a blue
Maryland.
state?
Oh no, Miss M. She's in Arizona. Yeah, Maryland's blue state, but
Hmm.
yeah, maybe we just didn't get them.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a massive problem with the ballots in Brooklyn where people would get the ballot that was like a neighbor or somebody down the street. So like all the addresses were off one. So the external envelope was to the right person. The internal one was not.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that there's a lot of complications there.
yeah. Um, let's see. I see Shay Jones says, first day in and my soul wants sugar so bad. Can you
My
please
soul.
go over the first two again in the end? I missed it. Uh, yeah. Oh, I feel your pain, Shay. We have all been through it. I totally get it. So you got to stick with it. It's just, this is just gonna happen. It's, you got to get through it. It's just like getting off the drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say though, I mean, really, Shay, you got a whole different problem. And I was saying this to somebody on Facebook today too. Like the dealing with sugar is a whole different issue. And that's what you got to get over first. Our first two things, I can tell you right now, they were eating meat that was too lean and eating too much. I highly doubt either of those will be your problem right now. You're fighting a war against sugar, and I think you gotta make a whole lot of progress in that first before really thinking about anything else. Like getting fat adapted is your first order of business.
So I put up a graphic that should be helpful um, in getting you to see how it is.
See,
So that's how it is. That graphic. That's exactly how it is.
this is
Um,
what happens when y'all give 8A technology. She does this.
yeah, yeah. But sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. So that's exactly how it feels. So yeah, sugar is it's just a drug and you got to get off of it. So my recommendation, eat lots of fat, make sure that you're eating enough calories so you're not adding hunger on top of, these cravings. And and you should be through it in, even in a couple of days it's going to be better. It's just like that first, second and third day is hard, but you get past that and it's every day is better.
Hmm.
Every day is
I
better.
just froze, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, be right back.
So, Shay, I recommend that you go check out some of my other videos. We did a live stream called the Brown Sugar Roundtable where we talked a lot about sugar addiction and for those of us who've been doing carnivore longer, we talked about how we handled it. So I would recommend. But yeah, in the first and second day, you're just going to be dying for it. And that's just how it is. Um, but then you will get over it and you will feel better. So yeah. But I'm glad that you showed up here. And I'm glad I
Yeah,
said your name right. I did study French for a long time. So um, there you go. Uh,
yeah. So did I. At first, when they said, "Oh, you said my name right," I was going, "What? How else would we
Yeah,
say it?"
I know. Okay, so check your body fat with DEXA scan. A big portion may be visceral fat, the fat um, behind the muscle. That may be why you're heavier than people in your weight class.
Yeah, I think that's back to my talking about the MMA fighters being smaller than me. Like they weigh less. Some of them do, but they're like the
Hmm.
same size as me, same height, and we look to be, as far as I can tell, about the same build.
Hmm. Yeah,
I mean, there's that, but also like, so I could still have some visceral fat. I hope that's not true because I've been carnivore for a while and feel very healthy, and my middle has gotten a lot smaller. I feel like I've still got, well, I can feel it in my stomach. I still have subcutaneous fat
hmm,
right right under the skin. I still have a good portion of that. Like those guys are cut, very cut
right.
compared.
Right. And there's a question as to whether that is healthy. That is not common. And especially when like you look back at old pictures of like hunter-gatherers and stuff, they weren't cut like that.
No,
I mean they were slim and slender, but they weren't ripped and shredded the way when you look at a magazine today. So, you could ask the question whether there is any benefit to being for a man, like 4% or 5% body fat versus, 10 to 12. It may be that, there isn't.
right.
It's not beneficial.
And that's where like I draw the comparison, and I think it's just interesting to think about, but like actually I don't care. I don't want to be as little as those guys. Um I don't need to be that kind of cut. I want to feel good more often than not, and that's what my goal is.
Hmm.
And I'm very happy with the build and body fat percentage that I'm at now. And it could get smaller and I'd be happier, but I think very quickly it would go into a realm of being really, really lean that I don't even think I would find attractive.
Right. And we're not even talking about what is going on in the minds of these bodybuilders and these athletes. I mean, they could be at the top of their game in terms of their sport, but they could be insane inside or super depressed or,
Right,
wildly out of control anger that they can't manage. I mean, and then you have to decide whether like looking that way is worth the stuff that's going on internally.
right. Yeah. Like for me, there's very much a balance between aesthetics and health is more important than aesthetics. Not to say that aesthetics are completely unimportant, but I feel like my aesthetics are pretty much where I want them to be. I'm happy, and my health is pretty much where I want it to be. And I know that fighting for aesthetics even more to get those like to a perfect place or something, or to like start looking like a bodybuilder or even
Hmm.
just like a fitness model or something, it's probably going to bring my health down because I'm going to be stressed out. I'm going to be tired. I don't like work.
Oh no, you froze. Oh, I gotta hear the rest of this story. Uh, you're frozen. Can you hear me? Now you no, you're back. So you don't like what?
Oh, I was saying, sorry, the computer is acting a plumb fool. I don't like working out anyway. So
Uh-huh.
like I'm not gonna enjoy life if I'm working out all the time to get these aesthetics to where I want. So like everything else is gonna fail just to get this one goal.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the last point, um,
Right.
which
While my computer is
is
still running.
yeah. Um, okay, foods that block fat burning. And it is fitting that Carnivore AF would write, "You guys are including stevia into the no sugar class of drugs."
Oh, the timing.
Yeah, that was
This
like perfect timing. So
right.
let's start with artificial sweeteners and alternate
Flagjacks.
sweeteners. Yeah. So,
Uh
well, for my opinion, there's a lot of different types of sweeteners. Some people do better with some than others, but overall, I think we do better without artificial sweeteners or other alternative sweeteners.
yeah. Like I'm gonna go ahead and say yeah, they're included. No sugar class of drugs. And I really like the use of drugs
Mhm.
um in this situation. Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people now you may be one of those folks who doesn't isn't affected by stevia, and you can very easily have a small amount of stevia every day, and you don't crave sugar afterwards. You don't eat more because of it. You don't get any insulin spikes or anything like that.
Mhm.
I think all of these
If
are
that's you, you're awesome.
right. Like, yeah, great for you. The same with those people who can like have milk all the time and that doesn't bother them. Or they can have heavy, like a lot of heavy cream and that doesn't bother them. Okay, great.
Mhm.
I think probably every time we get on one of these, it should be understood that our advice is for most people.
Mhm.
Most people shouldn't be doing artificial sweeteners, definitely shouldn't be doing sugar. And most people probably would benefit from giving up dairy.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep. So artificial sweeteners, I mean, uh, uh, there. It's interesting the tie that has been drawn between them and weight loss or weight gain. Having artificial sweeteners and diet sodas seem to increase people's appetite, not decrease it. So that especially is something to pay attention to if you find that you want more food when you're having them.
Mm.
I know like G Hughes has that, barbecue sauce made with sucralose, and I definitely found, even though, it's low carb, it works for low carb, I still eat twice as much food when I use it than when I don't.
Yeah.
And it tastes good. I don't want to stop. It tastes good. I don't know. I just eat more with it. So that's something to note.
And for me and for a lot of people, there are like straight up side effects with artificial sweeteners. Like aspartame gives me headaches, but I think most people kind of stay away from aspartame now. I think we've all at least heard we either we have our personal experience that's bad with it, or we've heard enough that we know to stay away from that. But sucralose gives me cramps and headaches. Um, Stevia and a lot of the natural artificial or the natural sugar alternatives taste bitter to me.
Hmm.
Even if they taste kind of sweet at first, there's a really, really bitter, acrid aftertaste that I don't like at all.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's why people start to mix some of the artificial sweeteners, because when you mix them, they counterbalance each other, so that bitterness kind of goes away. But yeah, I mean, if you have to do a little experiment there to make it work, then I don't know. Yeah.
And I would just it's not what we should be eating. Um, it's not what we were built to eat. Humans didn't evolve having sweet things, especially unnaturally sweet. Like you take that stevia leaf, you chew it up every once in a while. Only some people have that,
Hmm.
and I don't like it. That's not a staple of the human diet. Um,
Yeah.
and that especially for the things that are artificial, those are created in a lab. That was not something that we evolved to eat.
Yeah.
So I really kind of feel like who knows what damage that stuff is doing to you that you just can't recognize and that science hasn't recognized yet.
Hmm. Yeah. And Johnny G brings up a great point. Artificial sweeteners may not make you fat, but it can affect your health. It is said to be hard on the gut biome and mitochondria.
Yeah. And isn't that with what nutrition with Judy said in
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. She said, yeah, that it's like a bomb going off in your gut microbiome. So if you have any kind of autoimmune issue, you really, really don't want to, because it's going to continue to exacerbate the problem, cause leaky gut syndrome, and so on. And like, remember that as you start eating the optimal human diet, your body is going to start the healing process, because you're finally giving it all the correct things. And so, many times we like start this diet and we're like, yay, I want to lose weight. And your body's like, oh, finally, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to do this, and all these other things that hadn't been done. So weight loss might be lower on the list. Um, but if you keep throwing in the artificial sweeteners, you may can be continually creating the damage that your body, needs to go back and deal with. And so, you're like sort of slowing down your healing process, or hindering, that process. So that may be a good reason too to skip the artificial sweeteners.
Yeah. And what were the other things on this list? So the artificial sweeteners. Oh, alcohol. We didn't talk about alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Just don't do it. Just let it go.
yeah. So alcohol, yeah, it's one of those things, and I saw like Maria Emmerich posted a post yesterday, or maybe the day before. Alcohol is, it's a toxin, so your body wants to process it and get it out as quickly as possible. So it stops everything else it's doing to burn that alcohol, and it is a fuel source. So even if you're in ketosis and burning fat for energy, when you drink alcohol, your body stops burning that fat and goes to burn that alcohol for the energy, and it will eventually go back to the fat, but for a period of time you're not burning fat anymore, you're burning alcohol.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, so alcohol is getting in the way of that. It's also tearing up your microbiome. Um, it's having effects on your mood, not
Hmm.
just short term, but long term. Like, there's just really nothing good about alcohol, for really being honest.
Hmm.
It's not a part of a healthy life.
I had read this really great book called Explained. Who, let me see if I can figure out the author. Um, uh, but it tells you just all the specifics of how alcohol works in your body. And
Mm.
I found that it was really helpful, to kind of understand, what physically is happening in your body. Oh, William Porter, that's the author's name. And it's on Audible as well, but you can buy it. But it's just like, it just tells you, when you have that first drink, here's what's happening. Here's what's happening in the first 10 minutes. And then in, the next 20 minutes, here's what's happened when you have more. And here's what's going on the next morning. And just all the science that there is. He just basically took every study and just, laid out laid out a picture. And when you look at the totality of the scientific research on alcohol, it's pretty clear it's not good for you.
Yeah,
So, when you see these newspaper articles like, new study shows like wine helps, with antioxidants or whatever, the study is being posted because it's an aberration and it's the story we want to hear. But it doesn't reflect the totality of the scientific research. So, um, yeah, you're going to do better if you just get your glutathione. That's our biggest and most abundant antioxidant that we make from protein. So, the best way to get fully antioxidated up is just to eat, eat your steak and your fat.
that would make sense. Instead of like adding an unnatural, very recent in our evolutionary history substance to your diet to try to have antioxidants, you could just cause your body less stress so that you need less antioxidants while at the
Hmm.
same time eating the foods. Those same foods
Hmm.
also they break down into their own antioxidants. So that's what makes
Yeah,
sense to me.
yeah. And Invincible says aspartame messes with the frontal lobe of your brain. I think he means lobe, but I kind of like lube. Also, your body accept the calories, and when you don't honor it, you crave the sugar or carbs later. Yeah, so you
Yep.
got to make sure you get the calories in.
Yeah.
Um,
Like you're tasting this sweet stuff and your body's going, "Oh, where's the carbohydrates?
mhm.
We tasted sweet. Where's the?" And then you crave it later.
Right. So yeah, so you raised the other point, which we didn't raise when we were talking about the artificial sweeteners, is the cephalic response, which is where your body tastes the sweet, assumes sweet is coming, starts the whole process, starts pumping out insulin and all the other stuff that it does to prepare,
Mm.
but no sweet is forthcoming, and so then your blood sugar dips way lower because you've pumped out insulin, and then you feel really bad, and then you have more cravings for more sugar because you didn't get it in the first place.
Right.
And that
So
cephalic response has nothing to do with the actual substance. It's your brain thinking, or preparing in advance for what is coming. And so you can't, there's no way to control that. Regardless of what the substance does, your brain is sending a different signal to your body.
right. Um, Now, as far as dairy, people just have to accept that dairy isn't made for people to lose fat. It's made for people to gain fat. It's made for
No, no,
your
it's made for cows, little baby cows, to go from little thingies to 2,000 pound creatures.
well, okay, true. That's that dairy. But then people will say, well, what about no, I drink goat milk or something like that. Like,
Little baby goat
okay,
to big goat.
All right. And then you got David Rockefeller saying, well, I drink human breast milk. What about me? And
Who? Wait, who says this?
Rockefeller,
Oh,
there's, yeah, have you,
no, I have not.
yeah, there's stories that he had women pumping their breasts and he would drink the milk and that like kept him healthier for longer. I have no idea if it's true, but this is what I've been told. In it was in a history class, but I couldn't tell you when or where.
That seems like a little racy for a high school history class. Was this college?
No, because I definitely didn't take U.S. history in college, so it had to be high school.
Wow,
Uh,
you're high school.
oh
Um,
yeah, everyone you get in the honors classes and the teachers just decide like, you know what, I can be a little bit more real with you guys than I would normally be.
hmm
So yeah, that was kind of fun. So anyway, even then, that's made to take a baby human to a toddler human. They're growing a lot at that time. Also, have you looked at a baby lately? Their body's like this big and like this much of it is their head. That brain is doing a whole lot. That's what all that energy is for. That's why milk is composed like it is.
hmm
Our bodies, in proportion to our head and brains, are much bigger. Milk isn't built for us.
Yeah, we're done
And if
growing.
we're yeah, and if we're really being real about it, and I mean, I still have heavy cream sometimes, so I'm not don't take this as Arian's gospel that he follows completely. But we're not really built for milk. Milk's not for us,
Yeah,
and milk products aren't really for us.
yeah. Um, Shay Jones asked about pork rinds. We'll just jump right in and talk about that for a sec. So there's nothing wrong with pork rinds, but if you're eating them as a snack, then you just need to eat more at your meals. Like you shouldn't really be hungry between meals. But if you're doing 3 meals a day, like there's no need for snacks. And if you're finding a need, you need to eat more at your previous meal.
Yeah. Um, in fact, we just had somebody in a Zoom yesterday, and I told them the same thing. Like pork rinds themselves are not very bad, but oh yeah, don't even. I'm not dealing with C Bliss in this. No, we're not doing it. But it's like I saw you laughing, and I knew exactly what you were laughing at because I had just read it like 2 minutes earlier. No, we're not. I forbid.
Yeah.
Pork rinds, I don't have a problem with pork rinds, but I feel like people can over rely on them.
hmm
I think it should be a thing that you have, even if it's every once in a while throughout every day, I would be fine with that. But when you're like,
Or have it with your meal. Like it's
or
okay with
that,
your meal.
yeah. But
But I
if you're
feel
just
like
going to sit
once
by
you,
itself and pound a bag,
right. I mean, I feel like once you start, you know, like snacking at it, you just keep going. And then you've eaten way more than you needed to for no reason.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think actually with a meal is a really good way to do it. Like, especially if you do it after a meal. Like, if that's your,
Dessert.
um, yeah,
hmm Yeah. And then, so dairy, but we were saying, generally speaking, dairy is just, it's a growth item. So it promotes growth. And we are actively trying to shrink or stay the same. So it's
most of
just,
us, yeah.
yeah. So it's like, it's just, it's just, they're not compatible. So, leave one alone.
Yeah. And then, so the next couple things on this list, or the next category, is your cheat meals and your cheat days. And you would be surprised the number of people who say, "Oh, I'm not losing any weight." And then you ask them what they're eating, and they go do number four, and they track what they're eating, and you find out like, "Oh, you're not following the plan, dog. What did you think was gonna happen?"
Yeah. So even like a cheat meal weekly, I think can be a problem Because depending
Yeah.
on your health and where you are, it can take you, a couple of days to get back into ketosis, and then you're only in it for so long before you cheat again. So when you're in that situation where you only get a couple days under your belt before you have something, you're that's not a good place to be. You're not in a place that's going to promote healing. You're just in a place where you're like treading water.
Right. And I definitely think cheat days. Like I tell people if you really feel like cheating, just do it once. You don't need a cheat day. You don't need a cheat weekend. Like you are setting yourself up for failure because one, it's going to be really hard to stop that at the end. Because there's kind of no like a day. It's like so what like a whole 24 hours. I can
Oh,
eat
you can
whatever
do
I
a
want.
lot of damage in a day. Especially if you
Yes.
think midnight, like it's the end, you can just really knock it back.
Yeah. And then people start making deals with themselves. Well, I mean 24 hours. So I started at this time. So I mean till 24 hours away from that meal is the day that ends the cheat day. Or you call it a cheat weekend. And now you spent probably part of Friday and Saturday and Sunday all eating like a jerk.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what do you think is going to happen on Monday? And like, I see you guys. I see you in the Facebook group talking about how terrible you felt the next day, or even how terrible like that night was because your body was used to real food and then you gave it a bunch of carbs again.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you all know everybody's cheated or gone off, so you know what it feels like to go from feeling great, and you kind of forget how great you feel. Like when this is
Hmm.
your normal every day, it's just like, oh yeah, this is like how life is. And then you cheat, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to walk around feeling this bad all the time, and and I acted like this was okay, this was normal. Totally not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which which I also think, at least for cheating, like cheating and alcohol are pretty self correcting. Like
No,
especially
sort
once
of.
you well, yeah, as self correcting as any drug can be. Like you know what good is, and that bad comes pretty quickly.
Hmm.
And especially when you know what good is, that bad is horrible.
Hmm. But in the midst of that bad, more of that drug helps you numb out. So, especially if
Yeah.
you're having like bacon, a bacon cheeseburger and chocolate cake and a couple of beers, you got a lot in there that's gonna um, sort of numb you to the discomfort. But it may be the next morning where you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Yep.
Hungover, bloated, stomach hurts, all the things. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Bloated, tired. You
yeah,
just wake up like, ugh, I don't want to do it. I want to
yeah,
start today over.
yeah. So, part of the reason that I wanted to have this conversation about weight loss is I think it's really important for all of us to constantly be running through these five things in our head to kind of figure out where we are, as so many of us are trying to get healthy and lose weight. These are the things that are going to tell you whether you are on the right track or not. And so many gurus out there are saying, eat this amount of fat or eat this number of things or eat, measure this amount of, proteins or whatever. Or, they just have all of these various like complicated things that you need to do. And it's not that complicated. It's just a matter of listening to your own body. But it takes time to be able to get comfortable with doing that. So that's kind of why we talked through this. And I brought it up because the eating season has begun, right? And
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is not that far away. So next week Tuesday, I think that we are going to do a show on Thanksgiving specifically because we got to plan ahead, planning ahead, best thing to do to make sure that you handle Thanksgiving well. So we want to talk about it in advance. So remember these 5 points, and then we're going to talk specifically about planning for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just good to have them in your mind to know, oh, I feel like I'm stalling. Am I doing this? Am I eating too much fat? Or am I eating too much, period? Do I
Or too
know exactly what
frequently.
I'm eating? Yeah. Am I eating too frequently? Uh, what were the other ones?
Am I being impatient?
Being impatient. Yeah. Has it only been a week and I'm complaining? Um, am I eating too lean? Do I really know what I've been eating? And what was the other one? Oh, am I eating foods that are blocking my fat loss in the first place?
Hmm.
And then the hidden number six, how's my sleep? How's my stress levels?
Hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Esther. I'm really glad this information was really helpful for you. So, and I hope it was helpful for other people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny G, yes, eating season. That's what it is. Begins with Halloween candy and it doesn't end until New Year's Day. And some people
It's
even drag that into the Valentine's Day. So
really,
you got three kings. So you got eating through, because remember, Christmas is 12 days. So you go through three kings, which I think is like usually January 12th or something.
is that a Catholic thing?
It is Christian. Christmas is 12 days, the 12 days of Christmas. We
So
only
I'm,
celebrate that
I'm,
one day.
yeah, I'm Baptist. Christmas is one day in the church that I grew up in.
But yes, the three kings left 12 days later, I think, and so the Three Kings Day is the day that they left, I think.
I did not know this was a thing. I'm
Yeah,
learning.
yeah. Um, I get maybe it's a Catholic thing. I know in France, there's definitely like some stuff that they do for it, and I've seen it in Spain as well. Oh
Hmm.
no, wait, Virginia's saying January 6th, the Epiphany. Yes, so not the 12th, but the 6th. So 12 days after. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I can go into January, and some people take it all the way to Valentine's Day.
That
I
is
always use
slick.
Lent as a hard stop. Lent has got to be, that's the time to clean it up. If you've been messing up during the eating season, this is your opportunity to clean it up.
Hmm.
Sibylla says it's not Christian A Day. I don't know why.
That's a song.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Anyway, it has to do with Christ. It's Christian. I'm Catholic, and I remember I was looking for a catechism book, and I went into this Christian bookstore, and I said, "I'm looking for this," and the woman looked at me and was like, "We don't have that here," as if I had asked for the Satanic Bible. I mean, it was like, hey, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ here. Like, what?
But
But
see, it's wild that it wasn't until college or high school that I realized that for a lot of people, especially Protestant people, they consider themselves Christian and they consider Catholic an entirely different thing. So they'll say, "Are you Christian or are you Catholic?"
yeah, I mean, we're
And
still talking about Christ, right? Like, what?
right, and like me at the time with my basic knowledge of Christianity goes, well, actually, they're both Christian, but I think I know what you mean. But that's kind of rude to act like a Catholic person isn't Christian.
Yeah, yeah. That's essentially how I was treated in the store. Like, look, I'm in with the Lord. Like, I don't know what you are, but you got to get out of here. That was their attitude.
We don't sell your devil books here.
Yeah, that was the attitude. Yeah. Ben, thank you so much for the super sticker. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate the support. Um, okay, so we have been on for 2.5 hours. We have had a great conversation, And I hope that this has been, I hope that has been helpful. Yeah,
Right.
seamless. We're gonna shut down the Christian
Oh,
conversation now.
we're not
Um,
doing it.
yeah. So I hope that,
Shut it down like that other conversation that shouldn't have happened.
yeah, yeah. So I hope that we have been a delightful distraction from the scariness that's going on in the real world right now. I hope everybody voted. It is, I guess now the polls are closed, so that was it. So now all there is to wait and see.
Yeah, I think except for the West Coast.
Hmm. Oh, that's right. They're way behind, right?
Right.
So yeah. All right. So we
Is that a dab emoji? Where did he get a dab?
um that is impressive. That is very
Right.
impressive. All right. So anyway, I will see all of you on Thursday. Remember the fasting doc. It's going to be a great conversation. Be there or be square.
Let's make it happen.
Okay. And then next week we're going to start talking about Thanksgiving and preparing. So yeah. And yeah, Johnny Jeep says, yeah, I dabbed. Yeah. Nice. I like it. All right, everybody. We'll see
Right.
you next time. All right. Bye.
Bye.